Okay. Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
First person in is Julia.
I'm very prompt.
Excellent.
I'm very prompt.
Oh, you're just backstage. I'm sorry. I'm not sure I was supposed to do that.
We brought her to the show.
Oh,
we're in the show, Julia.
Were you able to see, Julia? Were you able to see before you came on? Could you see us?
No, it. I had to type my name in, and then it said enter, and then I don't know. When I talked, it made me famous.
Yes, you were in the show.
So before I let you in, you couldn't see us?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I say with all the confidence in the world. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Did I just change the picture on you? Did you guys see that?
Yes. I did.
Are we recording right now?
Yes.
Yes, we are. This is fun.
Can I tell you my fun phone call I just got?
Well, probably not right now, because this is going to get posted later. So, because here's the funny thing, anybody watching, I'm not sure like you're even supposed to be on the screen. I'm not even sure how this is.
Here, let me.
I'm going
to try something. See what happens.
I love it. Oh.
Okay. Can you still hear us, Julia? Okay. Can you see us? Can you see us? Nod or no? Okay. That's where you're supposed to be. Okay. That's good. Because that's so I'm supposed to see that you're here, but not on the screen. Okay. That's good.
Okay. This is good. We're learning so much.
Yeah. Yeah. This is StreamYard. So, we'll see. So should we, Tawny, you want to just give it a few more minutes to let people get adjusted? Julia, in the chat, how easy was it to use the link that was on Facebook that then popped in? How easy was that? Was that pretty simple? Super easy.
Great.
Okay.
Super easy. Awesome.
Good. Okay. That's good to know. So, all right. Well, thanks for coming. Julia, have you watched this show? Have you watched Ted Lasso? No. Okay. So, yeah, well, maybe Tawny will be a good thing. Are they playing crashes? No, not yet. It's about soccer. So, and Tawny, do you have a chat open on your side? Did that open up a window?
I can see the chat on my side. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
So
if we just get started.
Yeah, we may just have a audience of one for this right now. Let's see. Okay.
An audience of one is better than an audience of none.
But a really good audience. That's right. Full participation from the audience. Okay. Yeah. Let's
pressure.
Let's go ahead and get started, and we'll do this. Okay. So, hopefully more people will hop on as we go. But if you're catching this as a recording, thanks for jumping in, and thanks for indulging us in this first 3 minutes of trial and error as we're doing this. Tawny, you and I have been trial and error for a while on all
the whole thing's trial and error, right?
Whole thing is, and it's kind of exciting. I was saying before we launched the broadcast, everyone, that we're kind of adding new arrows to the quiver of things that we can do to get our message out about the podcast and the book project, but also just about this presence-based work. And one of the things that Tawny and I have talked about for a while is, in the midst of this, that we haven't really gotten into yet on the website or in the podcast, is how many BS stories we can run into in public media, on television, in music. I think I did a post about a song a while back, that can feed the BS stories, and TV can do that too. And yet TV can also, shows and movies can also really give us great examples of really healthy things. And Tawny and I, both completely independent of each other, saw this show, Ted Lasso, discovered this show, and in particular watched this episode. And I'll never forget it, Tawny. It's when we were talking at the station, and you looked at me and said, "Did you see Ted Lasso last week?" And I said, "The Headspace episode, right?"
Yes.
And you went, "Yes." So all that. So maybe we should we give everybody a summary of what Ted Lasso is about first?
Yes, let's do that. And you are a super fan. You've been watching it even longer than me.
Yes.
So can you run us down? I missed season 1. So
okay, I will do it. I will do it real fast. I am wearing a Tottenham Hotspur football jersey, soccer jersey, which is a actual team in the English Premier League. And the reason I'm wearing it is Ted Lasso, the show, actually started out as Ted Lasso, the commercial, for NBC Sports Network a few years back when they started showing Premier League soccer matches on their channel. And they created this character, Ted Lasso, with Jason Sudeikis, who actually on the commercials took over this team. Sorry, this team. Everything's backwards. Took over this team, and he knows nothing because he's an American football coach. And the idea was to show the differences between the two. And it was a hilarious commercial series that they did. And they developed this idea to turn it into a TV show that has just blown up. It just won a number of Emmys a couple weeks ago. And it's actually the New York Times, I believe, published an article about the show being indicative of a return to innocence in television. That if The Office a number of years ago had taken us into the discomfort zone, Ted Lasso was taking us back into a more sentimental, connected zone. And the show is really about this character, Ted Lasso, an American football coach from the Midwest, who's a fish out of water in England. A desperate English football team hires him to be a coach. He knows nothing about global football other than he knows American football. And he has a couple of assistants he brings over with him who do know the game. But it's a story about much more than that. It's about how he deals with the separation from his family, how the culture shock of that, and how he deals with relationships with players, as well as the disdain that the rest of the country in England has for him because he's a dumb American who knows nothing about the sport. And it's a strangely endearing character, Ted Lasso is. And they expanded the show, and they have a number of different characters. Some of the players are main characters. The owner of the team, a woman who inherits the team from her ex-husband, is a main character. And it really has turned into a phenomenon. And it's on Apple TV if you have not seen it. And so you need an Apple TV subscription to see it. It's in the middle of its second season. Its last episode, I cried through the last 15 minutes because that's how I am. And so that's the summary of the show. But we want to talk about an episode called Headspace, which is season 2, episode 7. And in that episode, two of the main characters, Roy effing Kent, right, who's a former player turned coach, and gruff, mean, not really connected at all, but underneath that, very loving and kind and all of that, is dating the head of marketing for the team, Keeley, who's got the big central English, sharp accent, and is wild and creative and crazy. And it's just an adorable relationship. I mean, it really, really is adorable. But in this episode, for the first time, we see them having tension, or we see Keeley having tension. And this is what we really wanted to talk about. So, Tawny, is that a good summary to start?
Yes, I love it. And also just the connections with other characters that I think we might get into today, too. But that's a great place to start. That just this sense of like what relationships are supposed to be like, and how do we communicate about some of these tricky parts, and
right. Okay, so maybe I should lay out what the episode is about, like what happens. Okay, so in this episode, among other things, there's been a long road for Roy and Keeley to get together, and they're living together. And the episode opens up where Roy is just everywhere. Wherever Keeley goes in the house, he's there. When she's working at the kitchen table, he sits down and he reads. Then he's being very nice. He's saying, "Am I bothering you?" She said, "No." He says, "Well, I'm just going to sit over here and read." And he'll do exactly what she says, which for his character is really remarkable because he doesn't listen to anybody, right? But he really loves her. And so when she says, "I need to work on this," he goes and sits off to the side. And then she goes to work, and he's there because he's a coach on the team. And so he comes to see, he drops her off. He comes to see her on breaks. He sees her at lunch. He picks her up to take her home. And there's a series of little scenes where you can tell that Keeley is feeling, how would you describe it, Tawny?
Just needing room to breathe, right? Just needing a little bit of space for herself, just to be with herself.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. But she's afraid to say so. Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. What do you think? What did you think? What's the fear? Why does she not want to say anything?
Right. Like that's the part, is like she's venting to other characters. She's letting other characters know, like, what do I do here? But we've learned that being in relationship with each other, that, well, we should, the bullshits, want to be with each other all the time. And then if we don't want to be with each other all the time, well, then what does that mean about the relationship?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. And the thing is, Roy doesn't seem to be real needy or clingy, right? He just genuinely enjoys being with her. Mm-hmm. And you get the sense about midway through the episode that he thinks, in part, that's what he's supposed to be doing. He's never had a real successful relationship like that he's been really invested in. So he's listening to her, so I had a lot of sympathy for him, like just going, wow, he's really trying to listen. He's really trying to respond. He's really trying to be there. Mm-hmm. Right. Because I think that's a message. Those are messages that we can get to, that when you're in a relationship of any kind, particularly that kind, you're supportive. You're always there. You're always connected. Mm-hmm. But of course, the danger can become this, right? Or an over reliance on that. And so he has this sense by the middle of the episode that he's doing everything he's supposed to do. He's a really good boyfriend.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And yet what I love about the show is it doesn't fall into tropes, right? It doesn't fall into the easy pitfalls. Instead, unlike a lot of shows, she just vocalizes it, in this case, to the owner of the team, who's a good friend of hers. And she just says, he's always fucking around. I mean, it's, foul mouth like the entire show is,
yes.
But she's like, he's just always around. Mm-hmm. Always. And she lays out all of that. But did you get a sense that she's afraid if she says anything, he's going to go away?
Certainly, right? And then just feeling guilty a little bit around her own feelings, like not even really sure if this is reasonable to even feel in a relationship. And he's, like you said, like not having a whole lot of experience, sort of oblivious to the nonverbals.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are several.
Yeah, there are some nonverbals.
He's just oblivious to them, which is endearing on one hand, and then also, obviously can be difficult when your partner is oblivious to your nonverbals too, right? So there's that part also.
Yeah, there's some painful ones where she's venting pretty much to the entire administration of the team in the locker room, and he comes walking in, and they all do the quiet, which is the telltale sign you're being talked about, right?
Right.
But he's oblivious to it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So she struggles with that, and the nature of the show is, I think that it's meant to make us panic a little bit. We're rooting for these characters so much. Because it really is such a heartfelt, connected series of relationships, and you're rooting for all of them so deeply. And I think it comes to a head. She finally, if I remember correctly, says to him,
yeah,
you're always around. Right.
Yes.
And his response blew me away, and it actually made my stomach kind of churn a little bit. He said, I'm a fucking idiot. And he turns and walks out. Mm-hmm. Right. So like her worst nightmare, and it's his worst nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is something, I mean, how often have you run into that in real life situations, Tawny, with the people that you work with or talk with? Have you seen that a lot?
Absolutely. We tolerate, or we're just not aware. And then it comes to a head, and that's when we're finally communicating about it. But then we're communicating from a space of frustration or just anger or just like at our wit's end. And a lot of wires get crossed, and neither person is feeling safe in that. We're in our fight or flight. right? And so then it goes sideways. And then both of them are feeling like, anytime this happens in any of our lives, just feeling confused, sad, frustrated,
threatened,
guilty, all of the things.
Yeah, and then there's those really uncomfortable few moments where they show the scenes where they're normally all together, and they're not, right? And she is decidedly uncomfortable. He's just pissed off because that's Roy Kent, right? Because that's how Roy is. He's gruff at best, rageful at worst, at least on the outside.
And underneath that, I think for him was just genuine confusion.
Yeah, because it is a series of messages that we do get, and this idea that you're always, if you're with somebody, you always need to be around them, or that's the best thing. That's what you're supposed to do, right? And what's interesting is just the very nature of the episode and how they wrote it shows that a lot of people still believe that, right? That it has to be that way. And I loved how it took us all into that same uncomfortable zone that both of them were in, right? And then the whole thing shifts in one of the most incredible things I've seen on the show. And it's just this really simple scene where Roy is out coaching the team. He's pissed off, right? So he goes out and he's just going to coach the guys. And he's coaching Jamie Tart, who's his kind of arch enemy up until this point, arrogant soccer player who's really trying to do better by him. So he's coaching them on defense, and he starts yelling, Roy does, at Jamie that he needs to stay on his man, because what happened was they were running towards the goal, and Jamie was, instead of staying with a guy on his own team, split away. So moved far away. And Roy stopped the game, and he's yelling at Jamie. He's cussing at him, says, no, you're supposed to stay right by your teammate's side. You're supposed to stay right there. You're supposed to be supporting him. That's what he needs you to do. You're supposed to be right there. And Jamie, who is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, right? He's not. Do you remember what he says, Tawny?
I don't know if I remember the exact words, but basically he says they trust each other, right? They need space in order to do what they need to do, and that they trust each other.
He says what he actually needs from me is the space to move and have me be available on the wing if he needs me. And Roy, it's awesome. They pan in on his face.
Yes.
And he just says in that deep British growling accent, well, fuck me. And he turns around and runs back and he leaves. Okay. And so you need to set the next scene. Like, what's the resolution in this? You can set the scene. How does he learn from this? Because what he does is gorgeous. It's beautiful.
It's wonderful, right? And so Keely gets home and she sees something in his bag at the bottom of the stairs. And so she sees that he's there. She doesn't understand if he's packing up and leaving or what. She's not sure. She runs upstairs and he walks her into the bathroom with a bath drawn and rose petals everywhere and just this gorgeous, my gosh, just this gorgeous, like relaxing, like dream place that anybody who needs a little bit of space would absolutely love, right? And he basically says, you've got 3 hours where you're not going to hear from me, see me. You have nothing to do with me at all. and you are just going to be here, right? Yep. And the connection that occurred between the two of them. Oh gosh, it was incredible. It was incredible. My gosh. Just the softening, both of them, just what a difference in terms of how their body, their facial expressions, even though Roy's facial expressions never change at all. But you can always know what he's thinking or feeling, right? But it's just the same. But just a beautiful moment of being able to be with each other and connected, but that space was needed and trust was there. Yeah.
and she was seen. I mean, that's, she gets into that tub and he tells her, "You're not going to hear anything from me for 3 hours."
Yeah.
And the look she gives him and it's this combination of relief that he's not leaving, because she thought he was leaving.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. And when she says that to him, "Are you leaving?" And he just says, "No." Are you crazy? But she's so seen, and she knows that. And there have been a number of episodes that could have taken, where I kind of thought where something was going to happen, they were going to inject some drama into this. Yet almost every time that happens, Roy shows this step up, or Keeley shows this step up in vulnerability and connection and giving. And so he gives her this space instead. And it's amazing. I mean, it was almost like a jump out of your seat kind of cheer moment. And it's so funny because when that happened, I thought of everything we've been talking about.
Right.
He's like, "Look, there it is. There it is. There's a TV show that gets it."
Yes.
Yeah.
That space. I think we were even like, it was just days from that episode where we talked specifically about space, and then that showed up, right? So it was just an amazing example of how space actually helps us to connect more deeply.
Yeah. That actual space to breathe, to calm down, to let other people have that for whatever reason, whether they're agitated, whether they're just, even if they just need alone time. It's interesting for me. I kind of, I think that was the same episode we had kind of explored a little bit about introvert, extrovert, that kind of thing. Where do we draw our energy from? And introverts, generally speaking, it's like they draw energy and renewal from being on their own. Extroverts being around others. I never think it's quite that simple. For me, I'm kind of right in the middle of that. But I know that I can appreciate both Keeley and Roy's point of view. The people that I care about, I really want to be around them. I really do. And then there's times I don't, and that can come out of nowhere, and it has nothing to do with them. But then I can also be the Roy Kent who's oblivious, right, to someone needing more space, right, or just someone needing time. And my friends who know me really well will tell you that historically I can have a real problem if they need space. That's really hard for me historically to be like, "Oh, what does that mean?" It kicks up something very emotionally, almost a primal fear for me sometimes. Unlike Roy, who was just oblivious.
Right. And I think what it shows then is they're able then from here on out be able to talk about when and why and how space is needed for both of them. I think that's part of the trouble is we have the stories of what a healthy relationship is supposed to be, or what a committed relationship is supposed to be. And when those stories involve like parts that go against what we're needing kind of as a human being, and we're not able to talk about those, or we're going to feel guilty if we do, or we're going to hurt people's feelings if we do, those kinds of things. Like, I think what the show is showing is that communication, when it's needed, actually isn't so bad. Like we avoid it until we just can't take it anymore. And then it just comes out like a fire hose. But if we start to talk about it sooner, so many different examples of this in the show. If we start to talk about it sooner and we're vulnerable with each other and we're just real, right? Like magical things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that's a moment that both of them are never going to forget. Right. And is really going to be something to build off of. And boy, that runs counter to the messaging that we often get. Right. It's that, giving space can be just as important as giving attention. Right. And being there. And sometimes the way to be there for somebody is to not be there, to honor the other things they have to do. I think it was one of the things which people will hear in the next episode of the podcast that'll broadcast on Saturday, is where we talked a little bit about that very thing. right? It's
Yes.
as part of trust,
Yes.
right? To trust that when somebody needs space, that you're gonna be okay. You can be okay in that, and then that's not necessarily a bad thing. That actually can be a very healthy thing, and it is a healthy thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
otherwise, if you're around each other all the time, that's when things like, more negative things like, I guess what they call like enmeshment can happen, or
Mm-hmm.
or just conflict.
Yeah. It's just limiting, right?
Yeah.
It's not expansive, right? So if we're doing this dance of space and togetherness and space and connection, and we grow and we expand, we come together, and that's where possibility lies. If we are at either end of that, like too much space, and we're not connecting, like you're doing your life and I'm doing my life, well, that could be maybe problematic. And
Sure.
too much togetherness then can be quite limiting.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering if there's any questions from anyone who's watching. No. I can. It's funny on my side. I can kind of see who's here, and everybody's shaking their head. No. So there's a lot. There's a lot to absorb, particularly if you haven't seen the show. It can be hard to necessarily understand fully. But if you go watch it, you really could go and watch the episode by itself and get a good appreciation for it even without the show. But yeah, so it's and the show does a really overall. What do you think, Tawny? The show overall does a really good job of looking at a lot of the things that we talk about in a really positive fashion. Yeah,
it does. I can think of a few more just in that episode itself. The different characters getting stuck up here in a headspace. Yes. And they're missing out on the reality of what's happening around them. So This wasn't just this episode between Keely and Roy. There was also some other players in this one. So go take a look that were caught up in that. And it just was really clear how much they were missing out on, or missing the point, missing what was actually happening and coming from other people because they were locked up in here.
Yeah, and the stories. The stories, and every character has stories, right? And there's ones that are overarching, like the owner of the team who was badly hurt by her ex-husband has the story that she can't really ever find somebody to be happy with, or she can't ever stand on her own 2 feet. She won't ever be seen as something other than his ex-wife. There's that, Ted, as we find out, is hiding from real trauma early in his life, and he has a story about how asking for help doesn't help. So there's that. Everybody has one.
Everybody has.
Nate, the assistant coach, he can't ever satisfy his father, right? He can't ever please his dad. There's so many examples of that. And what I appreciate about the show is that it allows space for those things to be explored. And doesn't fall into all the traps we expect to happen on shows like this. It doesn't. It shows people going in other directions that I find myself, and I think a lot of other people find themselves going, yeah, you can do it that way. It can be like that. It's really cool. So I guess not that people need our stamp of approval to watch it, but it's a Boo Obs approved kaboom, like Boo Obs approved TV show. Okay. That's good. Okay. Well, I think we've talked for about 30 minutes. Is that pretty good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I don't know that people want to hear us continue to blabber on for too long, right?
Blabber on for too long. Everybody has lives. They need space.
Right. Yeah. And they need space from us, right? Like
Exactly. All right. Well, this is great. So thanks to everybody for popping on. And we're going to, if we can figure out this a little bit more smoothly, which, we can do things like this a little more often, maybe not 30-minute discussions necessarily, but if any of you have shows or movies or songs or any other kind of public realm stories or things that you would like us to take a look at, we would be happy to hear from you and talk about them, even if it's stuff we haven't seen. And I don't know, maybe one of these days, maybe we can get crazy and like pick a movie and do like a viewing party. And
that would be fun.
Stuff like that. It'd be kind of fun. Try to just have some running commentary. So anyway, I know even more boo-ups.
More boo-ups, yes. And going back to the trust stuff that we are talking about on Saturday morning. I think that is going to be so interesting. We definitely want to hear from everyone who listens to that one, whether you listen to it on Saturday morning at 5 a.m. because you're sort of like me and you have a dog that wakes you up, or you just like to be up at 5 a.m. or after that even. There's going to be a lot to discover and talk about there. So take a listen, and we want to hear those trust stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Because that was a really unexpected conversation. The way that all came out, it was awesome. It was really great. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out your dog in the back is sacked out on that chair.
Well, she had her workout on the assault runner today. Looks like she's about to fall off, doesn't it?
Yeah. For everybody who doesn't know, Tawny's dog runs the treadmill every morning for 20 minutes at least, and jumps up there. That's awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Tawny, and thanks to everybody else for joining in. And hopefully, we'll have this up on the group page, and you'll be able to watch that and certainly comment, and we can keep the conversation going. And if you haven't watched Ted Lasso yet, we highly recommend that you do. Yes. And Tawny, go back and see season 1, so you kind of.
Yeah, I need to catch up. I need to know the behind the scenes always, right? Always need to know what came first. So.
All right, awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you. Thanks to everybody.
All right.
Thanks, Tawny. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.